Professor Gupta also spoke about local factors versus national factors, and in Kerala it seems it is the local factors that have weighed predominantly in the voters making up their mind on what to do.
Well, there are two things. Kerala has been an extremely polarized society, not one in the party politics sense of the term, but more importantly, I think, it's a lot more casteist kind of a division in Kerala than probably anybody talks about Bihar or UP. Now, for example, the UDF in that sense is a substantive alliance. It has the Christian majority parties, the Kerala Congress. It has the Muslim League in its comment. So it's the UDF in that sense is a wonderful substantive alliance. Corruption, picking up from where Professor Gupta was talking, there is a former minister of the UDF today sitting in jail, Balakrishna Pillai, and yet the UDF is winning. So I think, but more importantly, I think this was an election where the UDF could have done better, but for the CPIM defeating the CPIM. I think, the CPIM probably defeated the CPIM this election. The Pinarayi faction working against the Achudanandan faction, the fact that the party, there is a denial from the Central Committee and all those things on procedural.
The left was in a mess.
They did not want to field them.
Yeah.
And the second time, in 2006, they did not want to field them. And mind you, there is also a caste dimension to it. The majority backward classes that had consistently supported the Communist Party, Communist movement in Kerala, the Idava community, Achudanandan perhaps was the first representative of that from even the Communist Party. So all these things, I think, went against the CPM this election.
Jyotirmoy Sharma, is that ever likely to change if the Congress delivers good governance for the next 5 years? Is there a possibility at all that they might get to hang on to power in the next assembly elections, or are we likely to see this trend which has continued from the middle of the 70s? Is that likely to continue in the future as well? Swapan.
Well, you have, as you said, the difference between the two formations is negligible. A 2% shift results in the shift of governments, which doesn't happen anywhere else. Now, what is very important is unless we find a significant shift. It is quite conceivable that the Arava community, which is now getting increasingly prosperous, may tomorrow see that the CPM no longer represents their upwardly mobile aspirations. Now that would represent a major social shift, but those sort of social shifts are yet to take place. Alliances, alignments which were firmed up sometime in the 60s and 70s still seem to persist.
Why is that, Jyotirmoy? If you can explain to our viewers, why is it that every 5 years, whichever government it is, no matter how it does, is kicked out by the people of Kerala? They want the old people back. They've seen them. They don't like them either. They'll throw them out after 5 years, but they'll have them for 5 years. Explain that, please.
Well, I think it's also in the nature of there being no alternative political force in the state other than these two formations. But if one, with due respect to psephology and Professor Kumar, who's an old friend and a former colleague, if one goes by conventional political wisdom, I think the UDF will get about 95 seats and not 92. This is what all conventional political analysts who are not looking at vote share or vote swing or so on and so forth are predicting. And I think that's going to be a cause for a huge amount of soul searching for the left. For the simple reason that it's not merely the question of somebody being in jail from the UDF because of corruption. The CPM and the LDF has had its share of scandals and so on and so forth. But I think the earlier question that you asked, which is the question of governance, will the Congress render governance? But when has the Congress ever rendered good governance once it's elected? It's one of those unfortunate things that here is the oldest party in the country, which gets elected periodically in states as well as the center, promises the moon, and then at the end of the day that doesn't provide good governance. And so this sort of seesaw thing in Kerala is likely to continue in the future unless a new political formation, a reorganization of political affiliations takes place in Kerala.